Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to episode 131 of the Last Round Podcast. Thanks again for joining us. We hope you guys enjoyed the bonus episodes we gave you last week during Ramirez-Taylor fight weekend. I believe we spoke to Boxing Social's Andy Purewall. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I believe I am. And we also spoke to Boxing Scene's Keith Idek. So our big thanks to those two good guys from Boxing Social and Boxing Scene. We appreciate the time that you guys gave to the podcast up in Las Vegas. Mike, how was the time in Las Vegas? You were up there riding solo, getting these interviews. How was it?
It was good. Vegas was back to normal, no masks. It was pretty busy. A lot of the Uber drivers and cab drivers were saying how, that weekend was the busiest they've had probably since COVID. So, it was nice. The Virgin Hotel was nice. The Fight Hotel, small arena, just kind of.
Yeah, that's right. How was that arena? Because a lot of people were asking about that arena, and because the Virgin Hotel took over, I believe, the Hard Rock. So, how was it for a boxing event, and how did it look?
It was good. I mean, it was small. It was pretty much the same arena that they used to use at the Hard Rock, but it was a good atmosphere. The fight made it a good atmosphere. There was a few, Josh Taylor fans from, Brits that were living over here in the US. We saw quite a lot had come from Texas and Houston and stuff like that had traveled over to Vegas to watch the fight. So there was a good atmosphere. And I think because it was small and kind of, everyone was kind of close together, it gave it a good atmosphere, some good spite between the fans going back and forth. So, it was a good trip.
Sweet. Yeah, hopefully that's the first of many more now that we're, because I believe that fight, at least since the pandemic started last March, that was probably the first big event or significant event in boxing that really kind of let in media and I mean, well, obviously if you exclude Canelo in Texas, but I'm talking about in Vegas. I mean, would you say that's the first significant event since the pandemic began?
Yeah, that kind of let in, some of the smaller fry, I guess, of media. Yeah, apart from obviously Top Rank, you were just letting in, ESPN and all the big dogs. But, they now have that run of events pretty much every week in June, all based at the new Virgin Hotels. So, Lomachenko's coming up against Nakatani, Shakur Stevenson, Adam Lopez. So there's a good run all in that new arena.
Yeah, they're definitely busy in the next several weeks. Speaking of Lomachenko, another guy who's in his weight class at 135 pounds just fought this past Saturday, the 29th of May, from Las Vegas as well, from the Michelob Ultra Arena in Las Vegas on DAZN. The Michelob Ultra Arena is actually in the Mandalay Bay. I believe that's a new name. I forgot what it was called before. I think I always just referred it to the Mandalay Bay, they're fighting at the Mandalay Bay. But when I saw that arena name, I was like, I think that's a new name because I've never heard it before. But even if there was a previous name, I don't even remember what it is. This was on DAZN. Devin Haney remains undefeated and retains his WBC lightweight world title with a 12-round unanimous decision win over Jorge Linares. Neither man went down during the 12 rounds. Linares, towards the last couple rounds, I don't know if it was like the 10th or the 11th. It was one of the last few rounds. He landed like a concluding shot pretty much at the bell, and Haney, walking back to his corner, had like some wobbly legs. So he kind of got saved by the bell there. I feel like if there was some more time, I feel he would have been in trouble. But what was your take on the fight, Mike? Give us your take.
It's kind of hard, isn't it? It's one of those where you go, because Devin Haney and everyone talks about how good Haney is, do we need to judge him, up there? Should he have really got Linares out of there? But I thought Linares left it a little bit late. I thought Devin Haney started really well. I thought he had a very good, educated jab that kind of just really stopped Linares getting in. And then, Haney says that he tried to, give the fans what he wanted, towards the end of the fight and tried to go for like the knockout. Because obviously I think a lot of people have been complaining about Devin Haney really just kind of like racking up the rounds and, kind of just getting one-sided decisions. He wanted to put on a bit of a statement performance, which kind of led to Linares really coming back into the fight, rocked him at the end of the 10th, like you said. And his legs still weren't that great in the 11th or the 12th. And I thought he was very lucky that the referee didn't take a point away for the amount of clinching he was doing. I think it was in the 11th, some part in the 11th, where he literally ran towards him and just grabbed a hold of him, like a running clinch. So, I thought he was lucky that he didn't get a point taken away for that. Good performance, though. I think he really just needs to calm down. I think the fact that we all give him so much shit for these performances is because of his mouth. Like at the end of the fight, he turned to Linares, when they were in the ring, and said, "You didn't win a round." And I'm thinking, didn't win a round. He rocked you in the 10th, and you were clinching the 11th and the 12th. And I think it's just the fact that he's like that. He's like one of those mouthy friends that you have where you're kind of just waiting for him to fail at something so you can jump on him because he's always telling you how good he is. And I think that's his downfall, in my opinion. Because obviously before this fight, he was talking about fighting Teofimo Lopez. He was calling Lomachenko out. Lomachenko replied to him on Twitter. They kind of arranged a fight, and then he ended up fighting Linares. But it was a good performance, really, for Haney, apart from those last couple of rounds, and probably the biggest scalp that he's had so far. So hopefully, less talk and more action from him.
Yeah, Haney won with scores of 116, 112 twice, and 115, 113. I agree on the clinching, especially in I think you mentioned the 11th where he kind of just ran to him and clinched like he planned it, obviously. But I was honestly impressed. I know the kid gets criticized. They call him pillow hands because they say he has no power and stuff. But I was actually impressed. Because he stayed in the pocket multiple times and he engaged with Linares, which was dangerous. There was actually more than a few times where he was in it. And like you said, his jab was pretty solid for a good part of the fight. I feel like he's obviously a big admirer of Floyd Mayweather. And you can see that there was instances, on more than a few instances, where he was trying to emulate Mayweather and how he boxes, and because at least to me, it kind of I don't want to say like they're comparable, like they're exactly the same, but you could see like it's not a secret that Haney admires Mayweather. He's said it before in the past, and there was a couple instances where he was trying to emulate his moves and his boxing ability. I feel like the guy. He's just like you said, it's his mouth that kind of gets him, gets the criticism. But that's at least he's getting attention. At least he's getting attention, and he beat a 35-year-old Linares, but Linares, I don't feel like Linares was outclassed technically. It was still an entertaining fight, and I feel like Haney at times he engaged. I thought going into the fight, Haney might have been. Kind of on his bicycle during the time and just kind of hitting and then getting out and fighting off the back foot and stuff like that. But I was impressed. Because he did engage with him with Linares multiple times. Is it wrong for me to say that I was surprised that Haney was a little faster? Actually, he looked a lot faster at different times because there's quite a few times where Linares try to get him with combinations and he just totally missed. So I think Haney's quickness was definitely a factor, and I think Linares knew it. And I think it was in the later rounds, those championship rounds, where obviously Linares had some success at the end of, I believe it was a 10th. He rocks him, but unfortunately for Linares, it was towards the end of the round. But like I said, I feel like if he had a little bit more time, Haney was obviously in some real trouble. But he survived, I believe on the scorecards, I believe Linares won 3 of the last 4 rounds on most of the judges' scorecards, but Haney survived. he survived, and he brought out the win. And I think that was kind of interesting how in the locker room, what they showed in some behind the scenes footage or some video, Linares, I think goes and talks to Haney, and then Haney, I believe, asks him, hey, you know, how was my power? How was my power? And then Linares is just like, oh yeah, it was good. Like, you know, he's being cordial and whatever. And then like when they interview Linares after that, like in the post fight or somebody grabs him, he's like, he has no power. And it's like, what? Why did you tell him he has, like, I don't know. Maybe it was just for like the drama factor of the whole event, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. But I thought it was a good fight. You know, I know some people were just like, oh, well, Linares is 35 years old. I think Linares still was able to show some decent talent that still might secure him maybe one or two more significant fights that could give him some decent paydays. You know, at that fight still shows other fighters who are coming up, especially the younger guys at 135 pounds, that Linares would still be one of those guys who looks good on a resume. Like he's still, if you judge him just based off of this last fight against Haney, Linares is still a threat. He obviously can still beat you. There's still moments where he's like, oh, you know, well, he might catch me. But he's obviously, Linares isn't 30 years old anymore. This isn't 5 years ago Linares, 6 years ago Linares. But I liked the fight. I was impressed. Haney, obviously, you got a bunch of criticism, and then people are like, "Oh, Teofimo Lopez sleeps him." I don't necessarily think that. I don't necessarily think that Lopez. Look, I think Lopez, deservedly so, is the number one guy at 135 pounds. He beat the number one guy. He has all the belts. Well, technically, if Haney has the WBC, that whole debacle. But is it fair to say that just because Lopez beat Lomachenko, I think he is number one. I think everybody should recognize him at number one at 135 pounds. But is there too much hype behind him just off of that one win against Lomachenko? I mean, I think Haney, if he fights a Lopez, I mean, Haney has the only other belt. If they fight for an undisputed matchup at 135 pounds, I think Haney he's in that fight. I think he's in that fight. I don't think he's necessarily outclassed. I think Lopez would probably be the favorite by a little bit, but I don't think Haney should be looked at as like, oh yeah, he's going to get killed. I don't think that's the case at all. What do you think?
I think it'll be a good fight. I just, I was kind of a big fan of Teofimo Lopez coming up. I just hope that he's not starting to kind of, read into his own hype.
I hope the hype's real, like long term. Obviously, off the Lomachenko fight, it's there, but I hope it's sustainable and it's long term for him. I really hope it is.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like he puts in the work. He's always seems to be training. He always seems to be in the gym and stuff like that, which is good. But I just get kind of, a bad feeling when you hear all these guys and they're talking about fighting each other, and it always comes down to the same things. Like, well, if the price is right, I'm like, dude, like, we don't care. Just fight each other. Like, we don't, I mean, all the greats have lost, down the line. So just fight each other, do a round robin, all fight each other. You're going to make, millions and millions of dollars fighting each other. So, but going back to that fight in particular, I mean, I think it would be a good fight. I just don't know, I think Teofimo Lopez has never really been caught, on the chin. So it'd be good to see him kind of get tested, get chin checked. And I just don't know if Devin Haney would have the power to hold him off. And some of the shots that Linares was connecting with on Devin Haney, I think if that was a shot from Teofimo, I think Haney would be asleep.
I could agree with that. Do you think that do you think that Lopez, okay, he's obviously scheduled to fight Kambosos in a few weeks. It's a mandatory. I believe it's a mandatory for the IBF. I might be wrong. But, assuming he wins that fight against Kambosos on Triller, does he stay at 135 and fight Haney for the undisputed, the true undisputed, even though he says, like, I'm undisputed? I think Lopez posted a video sometime this week where I think it was something along the lines of, this is the last time I'm going to address this. And he posted a video of Mauricio Suleiman, the president of the WBC, saying, yes, Teofimo is undisputed and this and that. And then people started replying to him with other videos of Mauricio Suleiman saying the complete opposite. He's like, oh no, this is the franchise title. Haney is the WBC world champ. And it was totally contradicting statements. So I don't know why he posted that. I would have just left it alone because you knew people were going to go after him. I thought that was a huge mistake, but it is what it is. But do you think that not Haney, I don't know why I keep confusing, Lopez stays at 135 and calls for the Haney fight as an undisputed to really show, all right, fine. You guys don't believe it? I'll fight him and I'll beat him and I'll really become undisputed. Then you guys can't say anything. Or do you think he moves to 140 without doing that?
Listening to all of his recent interviews and kind of piggybacking off what I just said before, I think he'll follow the money. I know Eddie Hearn said, in this fight that, if and when Devin won, he would be approaching Teofimo with a very substantial offer to, become the real undisputed, I guess. But then also, you're looking at Teofimo, he's got the option of maybe moving up and fighting, Josh Taylor for the undisputed at 140 after, Taylor probably has that homecoming fight against, Jack Carter in Scotland. So,
but imagine how much bigger a Josh Taylor fight would be if Lopez fights Haney. Lopez beats Kambosos and fights Haney and for like a true undisputed 135-pound world championship bout. He beats Haney and he moves up to 140, has maybe one fight at 140 just to kind of get his feet wet, and then fights Josh Taylor if Josh Taylor stays at 140 for his undisputed titles. Imagine the marketing behind that. Like, dang, it's the undisputed at 135 moving up to 140 to fight the undisputed at 140. When's the last time something like that's happened? Seriously, I don't know. I don't know when's the last time that's happened. I don't think we've
seen it in my time of watching boxing.
Imagine the marketing behind that. Just imagine that. I think that's like, I think that's the plan. You want to get the most bang for your buck. I think that's the way to go. Assuming that Lopez can still make 135 in a healthy manner and it's still good on his body, because obviously him and his dad have said that they were looking to move to 140 because it's already difficult to make 135 with the weight cut. But I mean, I think you want more bang for your buck, and like you said, touching on what you said about Eddie Hearn and DAZN have obviously showed that they're willing to pull out the checkbook, and Lopez fighting on Triller and getting the most money he's ever been making with this fight. They bid $6 million or whatever, and he's making $3 million, whatever. I mean, you don't think Eddie Hearn is going to offer him that? Like, okay, well, he's obviously making this, so I at least got to offer him $5 million, offer him $5 million or maybe a little bit more. I don't know. I mean, Lopez is the type of guy right now, especially with all the issues that he has with Top Rank, how he's fighting on Triller and all that stuff. I feel like if Eddie Hearn approaches Lopez with an offer and gives him like, hey, you made $3 million for that Kambosos fight, I'll double it. I'll give you 5 to 6 or whatever. I feel like even if Top Rank says no, they're just like, nah. Like he's going to move to 140. I feel like Lopez, if he can legitimately still make 135 months down the line, by the end of this year maybe, I feel like he's the type of guy that'd be like a Ryan Garcia and start posting online like his disgruntled behavior, in a sense, if you want to call it that, and say like, no, I want this fight. Eddie Hearn, contact Bob Arum or whatever. Maybe. I mean, but I think Lopez moves up. I'd like to see him just say, fine, I'll fight Haney and I'll take his belt too. And then I'll move up to 140 and fight Josh Taylor. Undisputed versus undisputed. But I think Lopez moves up. I don't think he fights Haney. Even if Eddie Hearn offers him a sizable amount, the most he's ever made at that point, I don't think Lopez does it. I think he moves up and he still rides the train. Oh yeah, I'm undisputed. Now I'm at 140. I'm gonna take over this division. I think that's gonna happen.
I think if any of the four kings, four princes, as it's kind of been named, I think if any of them is going to go on a run like that, I think it would be Teofimo Lopez. Because, looking at it now, that Nakatani, win it's kind of getting better and better with age because we've kind of seen how good Nakatani is, and then fighting Lomachenko, and then fighting Kambosos, and then if he goes on to actually fight Devin Haney to try to clear up whether he is the undisputed champion or not, and then moves up to fight Josh Taylor, that's an award-winning run of opponents. You know, that's a fighter of the year schedule if he does that.
I feel that if Lopez moves up, that Top Rank is gonna try and get Lomachenko to get those belts, or at least one or two of those belts back at 135, because obviously Lomachenko, he's at his max weight. He's not going to go above 135 because 135 is already a big weight for him. So Lomachenko is going to stay at 135. I'd be surprised if he goes to 140. But like I said, Lopez moves up. Lomachenko gets a shot at the vacant title or vacant titles or whatever, however they work on it. And I feel like Eddie Hearn approaches Lomachenko for a Haney fight. But I don't know. But I think Haney did say in the interviews after the Linares win, I think he did say, he's like, if I can't get that undisputed fight, he has all the titles. Like, if I can't get it, then I'll probably just move up to 140. I think he said that. I think he did say that. So I don't know, man. Like, I feel like none of these guys are going to fight. Like, obviously Lopez and Lomachenko fought, which is great. You know, he beat the king, not only the king of the 135 division, but pretty much at that time, arguably the top 2 pound for pound fighter in the world. He did. You got to give him ultimate credit for that. But I just feel like you said, round robin, they're just going to circle around each other. You know, they're not going to fight each other. They're not.
No, they're not going to fight each other. I mean, you know, Haney's fought really a whole list of nobodies until he fought, you know, over the hill Gamboa. I don't know whether I'd call it slightly past his best Linares. I thought he still looked pretty good. I wouldn't call him washed up. Ryan Garcia's really fought like a whole load of nobodies, and it was kind of humorous that, you know, with all the stuff that he's gone through, as soon as Jojo Diaz had, you know, inked that contract to fight Fortuna and he wasn't scheduled to fight him anymore, he's there talking shit to Devin Haney. And obviously they were going back and forth today about Ryan was saying like, hey, I would have knocked that guy. I would have knocked Linares out. So that looked
really bad on his part from a PR standpoint. Yeah. I don't know who his team is, but they need to take his photo away, you know, like, because that didn't look good at all, you know.
A lot of people that had his back, celebrities, media.
which is fine. Like, obviously, you know, that's a legitimate issue. Take care of yourself, man. Do it. You know, take away the stigma. But then, if you do stuff like that, and you're talking crap on a guy who is in your division and who wants to fight you as well, and he's a champion, and then you're saying, "Oh, I would have slept you," and it's like, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to be focusing on yourself right now? Didn't you say you need time?
He was supposed to fight him. The Campbell fight was for the WBC interim.
Yeah, and they took
Devin Haney because Devin was injured.
Yeah, and they took away the interim slot, and now they give it to Jojo Diaz and Fortuna. Imagine if Jojo Diaz wins and beats Fortuna. Just imagine the stock that gives him at 135 pounds, and he's just like, oh, okay, cool. He's like, I'm in the running now. I'm the WBC mandatory. It could. What if it? How? You know what? Not it's all kind of connecting together here. By the end of the year, we could see Jojo Diaz versus Devin Haney.
You got to bank on yourself, and Jojo's done that. You know, he's only recently moved up to one weight category, and then he's taken, you know, a big risk and banked on himself to move up for this fight against Fortuna. So all credit to Jojo because you know Jojo was only recently having some issues himself.
Right.
So he's overcome all of that, and you know, recently had a child, and you know, missed weight, and you know, in recent fights. So you know, he looks like he's kind of come through to the other side, and you know, he's really, really banking on himself, which is, you know, what fighters need to do sometimes to get these shots.
Yeah. If Jojo Diaz beats Fortuna and becomes a WBC mandatory, well, he's going to become is this for the interim title, right? So obviously, he's always going to be. It's a mandatory spot. I don't know why they actually give them a belt and call him the interim champion. Like, I don't understand why. Just say it's for for the mandatory spot. Whoever wins gets a title shot, but it's like, oh, new interim. Like, that sounds so weird. But if Jojo Diaz beats Fortuna, gets that spot, he's in a prime position because Haney's is mandated to fight him. Technically mandated, depends how much power you have in the game. But if Haney wants to fight somebody else, he's like, I don't want to fight Jojo. Eddie Hearn's going to have to pay Jojo step-aside money. So Jojo's in a prime spot if he wins. And he's I would say, obviously, 135 is a lot more lucrative in terms of money than 130 pounds. So if he wins, he's obviously going to stay at 135 and see how it goes. But honestly, I'm rooting for Jojo, man. He's obviously a local fighter here in Southern California, and if he kind of just comes out of the woodwork, beats Fortuna, and then gets a title shot and somehow beats Haney, and he's like, oh, wow. Nobody thought Jojo Diaz would come out like this. Obviously, he was a world champion. He won it in Miami and 130 pounds, but he missed weight. But imagine he wins the title at 135. All credit, regardless, all credit in the world to Jojo Diaz because Ryan Garcia pulled out. Jojo Diaz, came in and said, okay, I'll take the fight. And he got the fight. And the WBC is recognizing it as a mandatory fight. So I'm sure Devin Haney is going to be watching that fight closely too, because he's like, well, that whoever wins this fight is mandated to fight me. So I don't know, man. I think Lopez moves up. I think Haney stays at 135, even if Lopez moves up, because Haney might want to try and get all those titles too.
I was shocked. When I was writing the show notes today, 26-0, Devin Haney.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, who else is like that? Jaron Ennis? Isn't Jaron Ennis like? He obviously passes the eye test. You could see it. He's like a Terrence Crawford, but Jaron Ennis doesn't really have that many crazy names, does he?
Gilberto Ramirez.
He's like 50-0. Nobody says these guys aren't good fighters. We just haven't seen them tested. We haven't seen them in fights with somebody across a ring from them who you really think, oh man, like he could lose this fight. It's just like going back to what we were talking about, Lopez Lomachenko. Like, oh man, this is a good fight, but Lopez could lose this fight. Well,
one thing just before we move on, I wanted to touch on. What did you think of Ben Davidson in the corner? Because he was a lot more vocal than I expected, especially towards the end of the fight when obviously he came under a little bit of pressure. I know, I know that Bill Haney did an interview, I think, with Boxing Social before the fight, and he was kind of saying that he told Devin, like, hey, if you want another coach, like, I'll step aside. Devin kind of thought for it for a few days, said to his dad, I do want you in the corner, and then brought in Ben Davidson as the assistant. But I thought during the fight, it looked like Ben was the number one.
Yeah, it did look like Ben. But I feel like Ben Davidson probably talked to Bill Haney. Maybe it was during the fight or maybe it was prior. It could have been during the fight. And I feel he probably would have told him, like, is it okay if I take the lead? Can I give my take? And Bill Haney probably note, like, he saw that it was working. He's like, okay, well, my son's listening to him. I mean, like, it's good for Bill Haney to recognize that and be open to the fact to let another coach in. Because, we've seen partnerships in boxing over the years between a father and a son where they don't, like, oh, no, I'm going to train my son. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I don't care, which is fine if it works. But sometimes you kind of hit the ceiling and you need somebody else. It's kind of like a Jojo Diaz. He's been trained all these years by his dad. And for his world championship title fight in Miami last year, he brought in Joel Diaz. And he won the title. He beat Tim Farmer. Like, he clearly beat him. So it's stuff like that. Like, you kind of have to realize, like, you know what? I think I kind of hit my ceiling with this trainer, or my dad in this case. So, just kind of speculating here, I feel like Bill Haney and Ben Davidson, I think he gave him, like, permission. Like, yeah, you know what? Go ahead. Take the lead here. Because I mean, obviously we don't know Ben Davidson personally, but he strikes me as that guy. He's a young guy too. You know, he's a trainer, but he's not compared to all these other trainers like a Robert Garcia, Freddie Roach, you know, Virgil Hunter. He's a young guy. He's a very, very young guy. Sometimes he's training guys who are older than him, you know? So, yeah, I think it's cool that he was able to bring him in, bring in like a different angle of it. Especially since Ben Davison was here in the States for Tyson Fury, and Devin Haney and his team noticed like, oh, well, he's here and he trains Fury.
Josh Taylor.
And Josh Taylor, that's right. Yeah, Josh Taylor. Yeah, that was his first fight with Josh Taylor, I believe. Or was it his second?
Second, because he had that mandatory against
that's right.
Kong Sung that was a one-round.
That's right. So I think it was a perfect storm for Devin Haney. I think he noticed, hey, well, he's here, you know, why not utilize his services? I thought it was a good move because, you know, I think it worked out pretty good.
You think he'll stay? Obviously, you've got a huge dilemma in the fact that Ben has a fairly new gym over in the UK with Josh Taylor, a couple of young guys, McGregor, and obviously Devin Haney's based in Las Vegas.
I think Devin Haney would like him to stay, and I think it's in Ben Davison's best interest to stay with him because, yes, Ben Davison is already getting a lot of these significant fighters to get his services after he got Tyson Fury pretty much put him on the map. Obviously, we know that. Josh Taylor now, Devin Haney, you know, was he training Billy Joe Saunders?
On and off, yeah.
On and off, right? So him training Tyson Fury gave him that credibility. So all these other fighters now see like, oh, well, he obviously showed what he can do. I'm going to pick him up, which is great. But I think that Ben Davison at this point, especially having a world champion in Devin Haney at 135, as long as Devin Haney and his team still want to bring him on for the next fight or whatever fights that come in the following months and years or whatever, if I was Ben Davison, I would do it. Like if he says like, hey, you know, well, if I have to go to Vegas, I'll go over there and train you, you know, or I'll be right there or whatever, you know, as long as they can all work out and coordinate schedules and they're cool with everything, I would do it because Ben Davison still has several years as long as he plans to do this and train boxers for the foreseeable future. He still has a lot of time that he's investing. And I think if I was him, I would stay. I would definitely stay. I mean, you don't think so?
I think the only problem you're going to have is, you know,
travel.
The travel, and you've already got prior commitments to other fighters, even though Devin Haney's on a different stratosphere to some of the people that he's already committed his time to. And in terms of, you know, the money that he would make from Devin Haney compared to some of the lower level British guys. But it seems like Ben is very kind of, you know, loyal, and I don't think he's really chasing, obviously, the money. Obviously, the money comes anyway, but I don't think he would, you know, sacrifice some of the guys he's committed to just to join up with Devin. So, I mean, I know that they said in an interview that they were going to chat about it after the fight. So I'm sure we'll hear something soon. I'm sure that will come up in an interview on IFL TV or Boxing Social, what the future holds for those two.
I look at it more, too, from the angle of Davison has obviously trained a lot of English fighters, UK fighters. You know, that's been since he started with Tyson Fury, that's been his forte. Devin Haney is the first legitimate American that he's trained, and he's a world champion. He's one of the best at 135 pounds. I think that if Devin, like I said, just going back to what I said, if Devin Haney and his team are still want him back and they're open to bring him back, I think it only elevates Ben Davison's stock in the United States, because then other American fighters are going to see, oh, well, if Devin Haney's team, if he's obviously he keeps winning and he likes him and he still has him on his team, other American fighters are probably going to reach out to him too. Like, hey, do you have time to train me? You know, like I'm looking for a new trainer. I'm looking for an assistant or something like that. I don't see how that's not a bad thing for Ben Davison's career, you know, because then you have the American market and the UK market vying for your services. I think that's money right there. assuming it all works out and Haney, they still stay together and they want to keep working together. I think that's money right there. It's an investment, and him being so young as a trainer, that investment in his future as a boxing trainer, I think it's gold. I think it works out really, really well. I mean, how many what trainers right now legitimately like have a footprint in the UK and in the United States? Like legitimately.
Sugar Hill, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think maybe him. That's it.
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, that was he's probably the only one really.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's Freddie Roach and these guys, like they'll fly over there and train some of these guys and stuff like that. But I'm talking about a legitimate, consistent footprint.
Yeah, where
like both sides, because obviously over here in the United States, there's fighters who, the bigger fighters are the ones who have, the money or whatever it is. They'll reach out to Robert Garcia, to a Freddie Roach, to a Virgil Hunter, the guys with the names, maybe a Sugar Hill and stuff like that. But if Davidson, like I said, I think it works out for him. As long as him and Haney want to keep working together and Haney's open to keep bringing him back, that's only going to increase Davidson's resume, especially if Haney keeps winning. And now you're going to see all these other American fighters who are going to say, wow, maybe I should check him out. I think it works, man. And then he can open a gym over here. Mm-hmm. I think it works. Moving on that fight. Azinga Fusile. How do you pronounce that?
Fusili, I think.
Fusili? Azinga Fusili. I hope I pronounced that right. 15-1. Gets the 7th round TKO over Martin Joseph Ward. What do you think about this fight?
Disappointed. I honestly thought Ward was going to win. Obviously, he'd been the kind of number 3 for a while. He looked like he was going to get a shot the first time around, and then Angelo Leo and Stephen Fulton were supposed to fight for it. Fulton tested positive for COVID. Tremaine Williams stepped in. Angelo Leo won. I think if you looked at Fusili's resume, really fought a load of nobodies apart from when he fought Rakimov. And when he fought Rakimov, he was doing really, really well. Ended up getting caught, got knocked out. So when I was kind of looking at his resume for this fight, I was like, okay, it looks like he's kind of heavy-handed, but Martin Ward's very, 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 very slick boxer. I thought he's just going to keep him on the outside and just rack up points, kind of play it safe, and then, hopefully get his shot at the title. But it looks like there was a reoccurrence of a knee injury, which kind of hampered him in those last few rounds. And then he got caught, went down. And then obviously after that, you could just see that he was kind of fighting on one leg and, just obviously in the 7th, he got knocked out again, and the referee, kind of saved him really from more punishment because obviously it looked like his heart was going to be a little bit stronger and he, could have got really badly damaged. But, he is young enough that he can come again as long as he can kind of, stay away from those injuries because, he's a really, really good boxer, very slick, great to watch. Definitely, if you're a boxing purist, I would say that's kind of Martin Ward's style.
Also on the card, a Golden Boy fight. Jason Quigley gets the majority decision win over Shane Mosley Jr. Quigley captures the vacant WBO, NABO middleweight title. I thought when this fight was announced, I thought it was a good little scrap. I think I saw an interview with Eddie Hearn as well that Roberto Diaz of Golden Boy, Eddie Hearn had said that Diaz had asked him like, "Hey, do you mind if I put another fight on the card?" Or and Eddie Hearn said he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh yeah, sure." He's like, I thought it was going to be like a 4-rounder or something, something at the beginning of the card. And then Diaz says, "Oh, I want to put this fight, Quigley versus Mosley Jr." And Eddie Hearn was like, "Holy crap, that's a good fight." And Hearn was like, "Hell yeah, you can put that on the card." Like, so. I like this fight. I thought, especially like I said, when they announced it that they were going to be on the card, I was like, that's a good little scrap. Those are two little. Quigley's obviously been a Golden Boy fighter for several years now. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
I feel like he's been there for a long time.
Fantasy Springs. We've seen him at Fantasy Springs how many times?
Yeah, multiple times. I've seen him in downtown LA when they did the old LA Fight Club series as well. So. And then you have Shane Mosley Jr. there, who obviously carries the name Mosley with his legendary dad. Yeah, I like this fight. I thought it was a good little scrap. Obviously, it was a tough one. Quigley edged it out with a majority decision. What'd you think overall?
Good fight. I honestly, I didn't think Quigley would win. I just thought he was the better boxer. Shane Mosley kind of does okay in the lesser fights, but every time he kind of steps up, he gets found out. It was good to see Quigley, though, get back in the win column. Just an unreal training team. Andy Lee at home, obviously couldn't come over, so he had to settle for Wayne McCulloch, an ex-world champion in his corner. He's doing, just having those two together, the amount of experience would be unbelievable. So it'd be kind of a good training team going forward. But obviously this was for a vacant WBO, NABO middleweight title. And, the way they were talking afterwards, it looks like they seem to think Quigley's going to get a shot sooner rather than later. So kind of a big step up. But I mean, if I was, part of his team, I wouldn't rush that. Some killers.
I feel like Quigley's been like, it's been a long time since I feel like Quigley's been in like that developmental stage, moving up and up.
Very slowly,
Very slowly.
Yeah.
And so I think like it's now or never. I really think it's now or never. Like they have to put him in there. They have to at least try to put him in there with something significant. I mean, like honestly, I could see in the future Jaime Munguia and a Jason Quigley. I can honestly see that. Yeah,
I mean it'd be easy to make. I think
right.
Back in 2019, his only loss was obviously against Turano Johnson, which was kind of a surprise. I think a lot of people from the East Coast, Andre Rozier camp, were all banking on Turano Johnson to win, and I think he came in with some quite good odds, and I think some people won quite a lot of money, and that was a surprise because I think that was kind of going to be the step out performance for Quigley, and he probably would have had a shot probably 2 years ago. I know he's had a few injuries as well. I think he has kind of some problems with his hands. But I just think, though, going from Shane Mosley Jr., I know he has the name thanks to his dad, but in terms of boxing ability and pedigree to jump up to a WBO middleweight title fight is
Who would you pair him up with next? Like, let's just say you have one fight in between before a hopeful world championship fight at 160 pounds. Who would you pair him up in the following fight that would give him a real test? As long as he wins, okay, you pass the test. Now we're going to try to get you a significant world title fight.
Because he's been with Golden Boy and he spent a lot of his career over here, fighting at small casinos that me and you attend. I personally would have him in there with someone like a Felix Cash or Liam Williams. Liam Williams wouldn't want that fight because obviously he's coming back down and Quigley's coming up. But I would honestly think the Felix Cash fight, he just had a recent, stand-up performance on one of the Eddie Hearn shows. Or was it the Frank Warren show? I think it was the Eddie Hearn show when he fought, his name, I can't remember his name. But that's a good performance. That's a good win for Felix Cash if he can get that fight. And also for Quigley, it's a good test as well. Felix Cash isn't a massive puncher, very, very skilled. That's actually a great fight. To be honest with you, that's a really good British fight. I think in my opinion, that's a great fight.
Didn't Quigley call out Andrade?
Yeah, but obviously he's trying to work because he's highly ranked in the WBO. So
right, but he did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, I think he called him out, but I wasn't sure. But I mean, hey, you never know. You never know if with the string of luck or bad luck that Andrade has with not getting any names. I mean, Quigley's not known and he's not a Charlo or a Triple G or anything like that. But, if Andrade can't get any of these guys and Quigley has some type of credit in the WBO now as he's moving up the rankings, especially after this last fight, you never know. You never know. He's like, okay, fine, I'll fight him. Andrade's still going to get a bunch of criticism for that, but I mean, obviously Andrade would be the favorite, but I could agree though. A Felix Cash fight for a Jason Quigley, I think that'd be a pretty good matchup.
I think it would have been Jason Quigley. I just look at he's 30 years old, so he really.
Yeah, that's why I say it's now or never.
Yeah, he needs to make that step up. Because if you look through his resume, he's fought guys that are like only a couple of fights ago who were like 10-1-2. Matthias Eklund, I have no idea who that is. Freddie Hernandez,
Right.
Oh, he fought Glenn Tapia back in the day. Forgot about that.
I remember that. Yeah. That was probably his most significant weight to date, I would think. Tapia, or at least maybe, especially at that time. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's now or never for Quigley. I think they're lucky he won, and he obviously, he had some type of a homecoming in Ireland when he went back. There was people, I saw video, people out there on the streets, and he was driving by in his car, and the cars, like a little line. So yeah, I think it's now or never. I think Golden Boy needs to put him in there. Like, okay, let's try to get him a significant fight, and give him something. Because, yeah, like I said, he's been with Golden Boy for several years. And I feel like the development has been just so slow. I know you said he has had an issue with some, like his hands and everything. And obviously the pandemic last year didn't help. But yeah, I think it's now or never. I think they need to put him in there with something and just see what he's made of. Like, okay, it's time. Let's see what you got. But we'll see. But I like Quigley, man. I've been a fight with him. I've been a fan of his for all these years he's been with Golden Boys. So hopefully he delivers, man. Hopefully he delivers. Rounding off that DAZN card, Chantel Cameron remains undefeated with the 5th round TKO over Melissa Hernandez. This was for the WBC super lightweight title. What'd you think of Cameron's TKO?
No.
Whoa. What does that mean?
See, I don't know. I know there's not much depth in the women's division. And I know that Melissa Hernandez had the name recognition because back in the day, she was a WBC title holder, but she'd had one fight against Selena Barrios since 2016.
Damn.
And as soon as the first bell went and you could see the first few punches were thrown, she was massively, massively out of her depth. She was a character. I loved her interviews before. I loved her ring entrance where she was dancing to the ring. I was just like, dude, this is going to be a great fight. Because, you read her pedigree and I was like, okay, she's rough. She's ready. This is going to be a good, just stand and fight. And whoever, it's left standing at the end, wins. But yeah, dude, you could just see that not been in the ring really for 5 years. Chantel Cameron the stoppage was kind of odd at that time. But if you'd have watched all 5 rounds and you were the referee, you could go, okay, I can see why he stopped it. At that point, she wasn't under much pressure. But the fact that she probably didn't land a shot in 5 rounds, you could go, okay, this is enough. Like, it's time to finish it. But if you just watch that small clip of the actual stoppage, like everyone was kind of, replaying it on Twitter and stuff like that, it looks appalling. But if you watch all 5 rounds, and I was kind of touching on, I just don't know, is that good for women's boxing?
I don't know. It doesn't seem like it.
Because you've got we'll call Chantel Cameron an A-class fighter.
Right.
Fighting like a very low-level club fighter, like that Sinisha Estrada when she had that opponent at the last minute and she...
Fantasy Springs?
Yeah, and she smoked her in like 3 seconds. Literally just ran over and fucking whacked her and knocked her out.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, this isn't, just the fact that the WBC sanctioned this. Like, she's had one fight in 5 years.
I mean, but it's like you said, the depth of female boxing is...
Yeah, that's why I wanted to play both sides of it, like, because I understand there's not much depth, but at the same time, is a fight like this good for women's boxing? Like, if you were a fan and you were like, would you just start laughing, like, what on earth is going on here? Does this woman know how to box? Right.
Well, I think it's just like anything, like it's like you said, playing both sides. The depth in women's boxing is just not there. Obviously, if you, in comparison to men, which is the only thing you have to compare it to in the sport of boxing, it's not there. It's not anywhere close to the men's depth. So I think these sanctioning bodies, like the WBC for this fight, they realize that and they're just like, well, we don't have too many options, so let's just sanction it. Unfortunately, until somebody gets hurt, is when they're really gonna and they get a really bad PR backlash, is when they're really gonna change it. But before that, they're just gonna be like, well. It's more of a reactive strategy. There's a lot of companies and a lot of places like that. They're reactive. They're very reactive. It's not proactive. They're reactive. Like, okay, well, until something happens, especially if we get bad PR about it, we're just going to have to keep doing it. So it's kind of a tough spot to be in. It really is. Like, there's no depth. So well, they need fights and we know they have titles. They need to sanction them and they have to figure it out. So hopefully nobody gets seriously hurt, but it's the fight game.
It was disappointing because she was a character. Melissa Hernandez, she was great. I was just watching it and I was like, hopefully she's a good fighter, because if I was Eddie Hearn and she'd put up like a really, really good performance but still lost, I'd have used her show after show after show.
Well, it's like Ebony Bridges. She lost, and I'm pretty sure Eddie Hearn is still going to keep using her.
Yeah, she had I believe a 2-fight contract. So
yeah, so you know, if she wins this next fight, or even if she loses, I mean, hopefully she wins, but like, you know, she's marketable. So I think Eddie Hearn knows that. So yeah, you're right. But it is what it is. But, you know, we just have to keep moving forward and see what happens next. Moving on, also this past Saturday from the Dignity Health Sports Park, formerly the Home Depot Center and the StubHub Center, from Carson, California, out here in the Los Angeles County area in Southern California. My favorite moment of the weekend, Nonito, the Filipino Flash Donaire, gets the 4th round knockout over Nordine Bali. Donaire at, I believe, 37 years old. I don't know if it's 36 or 37. Maybe older than that. I don't know.
I think it's 38.
38. See, I was wrong. At 38 years old, Donaire becomes the WBC World Bantamweight Champion. Going into this fight, I thought, even though Donaire was older, obviously that's a concern. Like, oh, well, does he still have it? You know, but like even Ubali, I was like, well, you know, the pandemic year obviously affected a lot of fighters. Ubali really hasn't had significant fights, you know,
and he's 34,
right?
Like people were just talking like Ubali was like 24.
Yeah, that's exactly the age. I was just like, this isn't, you know, I think Donaire has a shot. I was just like, I think Donaire has a way bigger shot than people think. And Donaire pulled it off, and he was obviously extremely emotional and excited and happy about it. Manny Pacquiao gave him a shout out, I believe, on Twitter. Canelo Alvarez gave him a shout out on Twitter. I think that was great, man. I've been a fan of Nonito Donaire for years. I mean, you got to remember, in the last decade, you know, if you exclude, you know, some of these other guys and stuff like that, Donaire has really challenged himself. For a couple of years, he was pound for pound top 5 for sure. And then he fought Rigondeaux and he lost. And, you know, he fought some killers and he took the risk, but he lost. But he went in there and said, well, yeah, he's like, this is the best guys. I'm going to fight him. And sometimes it didn't pan out and sometimes it did. And look, 38 years old, and he's a world champion again in the sport of boxing. Check that out.
It's crazy because it was only how many years ago when he fought Cal Frampton, and Cal Frampton kind of gave him a bit of a pasting.
Right, exactly.
And then, like, I honestly thought, you know, when he was in the World Boxing Super Series and he got all the way through to the final and was fighting Inoue, and it was like he'd rolled back the years for that one night and gave us that unbelievable performance against Inoue, who he actually broke Inoue's orbital bone, didn't he? In like one of the 3rd or 4th round, and he fought all those rounds with a broken orbital. And
up until this point, Inoue's toughest fight is Donaire.
Oh, definitely. So going into this fight, I was like, you know what, I want Donaire to win, but I just thought that fight against Inoue was the last time we'd seen the old.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought too.
Donaire. But against Ubali, like you could just see from the moment of the first bell, him and his team had realized Ubali cannot fight going backwards. And he just pressurized him and pressurized him and pressurized him. And then in the 3rd round, we literally saw the old Filipino flash left hook.
Yeah.
You couldn't even see it. You had to watch the replay. It was that quick.
Yeah.
And then unbelievable performance by Jack Reese, I thought, at the end of the 3rd round, where he was the calmest guy in the ring, just slowed everything down, did the count, made Ubali walk towards him. Everyone was kind of kicking off, saying the fight should finish. He just gave him another chance. And obviously in the 4th, he ended it, you know, with another left hand. Jack Reese jumped in, and you could just see that, I don't know, it was just unbelievable performance from Donaire, you know. And where does he go from here? You know, is this really the point where you think to yourself, you know what, this is the highlight of, like, I'm 38 years old, let's go out on top of the mountain?
I don't think so. I don't think he leaves. I think I'm telling you, he's a warrior, man. I know people are like, oh, this guy's a warrior, this and that. If you can't call somebody like Nonito Donaire a warrior, especially this last decade, who else fits that definition? as a fighter. You know, who else fits it? I mean, is it out of the realm of possibility that he retires on top and he's like, you know what? I won this title, 38 years old. Forget it. I'm out. I'm going out on top. He could do that. You never know.
He had his pro debut February the 22nd, 2001.
Damn. Look at that. 20 years, man. 20 years as a pro. I mean, who knows? Only he knows. Only he knows. Only him and his family knows what he wants to do. But I feel that he's that type of guy. No, I won this. People still say I still got it. I'm gonna show that I still got. I'm gonna fight somebody else. You know, I want to fight another champion. You know,
he called out Inoue, didn't he?
That's right. Yeah, you never know. Donaire, I can see that fight happening again. You know, I mean, obviously Donaire showed time in Inoue's top rank, so that probably won't happen unless Donaire has like a fight-by-fight contract with Richard Schaefer and PBC. But I mean, I'm not sure about the details. Obviously, nobody's sure about the details about his agreement. But I mean, check that out. You know, he's like, hey, I want to fight you again. You know,
and like we just said, if he goes into that rematch against Inoue, he knows he can hurt him. He knows he's not this mythical monster that we've all built him up to be, because he's already fought him in a very, very, very close fight.
Well, you also got to think about it too, is that Inoue, I think, should get a lot of credit too, because Inoue's been cleaning out all these lower level divisions and he just keeps moving up. He's like, okay, well, I beat all these guys and I'm just overpowering these guys. So I move up. Eventually, it's just like, that's why there are weight classes in fighting, in UFC and MMA and boxing. Eventually, Inoue was going to get to a weight class where it would have been too much, or he saw like, okay, this is it. I think this is my limit. I think his limit is at bantamweight with Donaire. I think that's where he noticed, okay, I don't think I can go further than this. So I think Donaire, like you said, I think he knows. He's like, I hurt this guy. He's like, it was a close fight. And now Donaire has this second wind in his career. He's got the confidence and the adrenaline with the world championship around his waist and around his shoulder. I think in Top Ranks, if Top Rank is considering it, especially on Inoue's part and his team, who else is going to make you more money for a fight than Donaire is at this moment at the bantamweight division? Do it.
Not even close.
Exactly.
Not
I would.
Close. I
would do it. I would do it because it should be a competitive fight again. It should be. Hopefully. I mean, the first one was pretty exciting. And Donaire just won another freaking title and just raised his stock. Dude, if I was Top Rank in a way, I'd do it right away because that's the money fight. That's the money. I mean, we all know this. These lower level weight classifications, there's not really that, they don't get paid like these higher weight classes. Everybody knows that. But a Donaire in a way fight, I think arguably is one of the most lucrative fights financially at any of those lower level weight classes. Am I wrong?
100%. Donaire's name, the mythical monster, like I said, of Inoue, the way that everyone kind of promotes him and the way that Top Rank always talks about him, fighting over here. And if you're Inoue, on the off chance that you do lose, you then have the trilogy. And how big would the trilogy be? You've won one, Donaire's won one, the WBC belt's now in the mix, along with Inoue's titles that he holds.
Right.
Unbelievable. A third payday would be even higher.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the matchup to go at that weight class right now. So we'll see. I hope it happens. I think it'd be pretty awesome, but we'll see. It happens in Vegas. Never know. You never know. Moving on, fight previews. This upcoming Sunday, the 6th of June, from the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida, on Showtime pay-per-view and Sky Sports pay-per-view. Floyd Mayweather's back. He returns as he goes up against social media sensation and YouTuber Logan Paul. It's one of these other what would you call it? What do they call these kind of fights right now? Entertainment fights, or what's the word I'm looking for?
I mean, it's not on BoxRec, so
is this an official sanctioned match or is it an exhibition?
I
don't even know.
I actually thought it was a sanctioned fight, but it's not on BoxRec. But I know that Logan did turn pro and obviously lost to KSI, and obviously Floyd's would get sanctioned by anybody. So
right. I mean, yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll see something different. Because Logan Paul, regardless, is a big kid. I think he's maybe 190, 200 pounds. He's a big kid.
I believe the contract is he has to come in no higher than 190.
Yeah. So either way, he's still a big kid. Mayweather's 150 pounds, 155 pounds soaking wet, even when he's not actually actively training. So who knows? I feel like this is Showtime's. Showtime is going to put on an event kind of like Triller. I feel like they're going to try to compete with Triller, with like entertainment and all this stuff. I mean, am I wrong to say that? Because I feel like they're going to do that.
It's kind of looking like they're kind of switching. Triller have now gone to just legit boxing cards, like the upcoming Teofimo Lopez Cambosas. And Showtime are now signing the YouTubers. And like we were discussing before we started recording, we wouldn't be surprised to see Tyson, go over there since they had the fallout with the guys over at Triller.
Right.
But like we said, if you're Showtime, if you're Triller, if you're ESPN, it's eyes on the TV. That's what sells. They're a business. That's why, in the UK, they did Sky Sports pay-per-view for Floyd v. Logan Paul, but nobody picked up Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, it's eyes on the TV, and they know that will get thousands, millions of views. Well, unfortunately, boxing hardcores are only really going to be the Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is what it is. Obviously, as a hardcore boxing fan, like it's like, man, disrespect. A lot of people like this disrespecting the sport. But like we said, we talked about this just before we started recording. Steven Espinoza, the president of Showtime Sports over there at Showtime CBS, if he doesn't produce ratings and he doesn't produce, revenue and income with these sporting events or these sporting documentaries or something like a Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather, they're going to let him go. Those positions are all about, just like a lot of other positions in the world, especially those positions, you're paid to produce,
It's going to be interesting because they've just released, I think the first episode is actually today, Inside MP, like Inside Mayweather-Paul.
Like all access?
Yeah, like the YouTube ratings. It'd be great to just look at those at the end of the week just to see how many millions of, YouTubers and, the young crowd that they're now aiming for.
Well, look at all these YouTube fights that we've had in the last couple of years. When DAZN started them and Triller and now Showtime and all these, whatever the Tyson or whatever, Jake Paul being on that Tyson Triller card or whatever. Look at all those digital, view counts on YouTube. They outperform.
The first episode is Inside Mayweather versus Paul. It's been out for 2 days. It's got over 3 million views.
Yeah. See, that's why they do this stuff. That's why they do this stuff especially because Canelo and Anthony Joshua right now are the only ones that sell. Pacquiao, I guess you could still say Pacquiao, but if you talk about like legitimate draws, it's Anthony Joshua and Canelo right now. Legitimate draws. You can't tell me that any of these other fighters with the guarantees that they require, that they're making money for these networks. You can't tell me that. So these networks have to offset it by bringing in these YouTube stars. They obviously see how it worked on DAZN. DAZN got a lot of publicity, and they obviously made some money when they put on the Logan Paul KSI fight. I mean, like, look at how many celebrities were at that fight, at that DAZN Logan Paul KSI fight. Here in LA at the Staples Center, Jack Black was there with his kids, and he was vlogging. He has like a YouTube channel where he vlogs, and he's vlogging the whole thing, and there was other celebrities there. It's just like the only time you ever saw that, and yeah, we were there too, actually. Well, you were there.
Yeah.
The only time we ever see that is when, especially in the last 15 years or whatever, is for guys like Mayweather, Pacquiao, Canelo, Oscar De La Hoya, guys like that. I mean, besides Canelo and Anthony Joshua, especially Canelo here in the United States, who else brings out that celebrity factor? like consistently, and then you draw the eyeballs, and then you also got to look at it this way from a publicity standpoint. These celebrities who are going, they're going to post about it. Oh yeah, I'm on my way to this, or oh yeah, Logan Paul's going to beat Mayweather's ass, or Mayweather's going to beat Logan Paul's ass. That's free publicity. They don't have to pay for that because these people are like, I'm going to this fight. I want to talk about it. See what my Twitter followers think about this. It is what it is, man. At the end of the day, these are all businesses. And it's, obviously we want to see boxing fights, but, we kind of have to get used to this because it doesn't seem like it's going away, And, if these professional fighters, the ones that were fans of these hardcore fighters, I mean, they're obviously upset. Because they're taking away, they're disrespecting our sport. Yeah, you're right. In a way they are. But, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? It is what it is. Lopez was talking crap about these YouTubers and said he'd never fight on a card where anybody associated with YouTubers or something. And then Triller picks him up, and he's all happy because they're paying him the most in his career. So, as long as these fighters get a piece of the pie and it's, worth it for them, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I'll fight on that card. Oh, yeah, I'll be on the undercard of Logan Paul and KSI. I mean, at the end of the day, money, man. We want to see the best fights. We want to see the competitive fights like a Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez. But these YouTubers, these social media fights, entertainment events, they're here to stay for the foreseeable future. So I think people just need to, instead of complaining about them, just don't watch them. Just don't watch them. That's how you vote with your wallet. Don't watch the videos. Don't watch any of that stuff. Don't watch anything on YouTube. That's the most powerful way you as an individual cannot support it. Other than that, it is what it is. It is what it is. But also on that card, a real boxing fight. Jarrett Hurd, 24-1, returns and goes up against Luis Arias. What do you think about this matchup? This is a real fight.
This is a good fight. I mean, this card also had, obviously we're going to touch on it next, but obviously John Pascal was supposed to fight Badou Jack. It's good to see Hurd back, obviously now campaigning at middleweight. Luis Arias also back. Sneaky good fight, this. Sneaky good fight. I mean, Jarrett Hurd, personally, I used to think he used to just rely on the fact that he was a monster inside the ring against everybody else. Luis Arias can fight, has obviously had that recent defeat, but he is had a change in trainer. I believe he's now with Salas in Vegas. So it'd be good to see. He was in Vegas. He looked good, looked fit, looks healthy. He's talking, saying the right things, looks confident. So this should be a good fight. Should be a good fight. Kind of obviously one of those ones when I don't think most of the casual fans don't have any idea who. But they are. But I could see maybe Arias sneaking it. I don't know why. I just have this feeling that Arias, with the changing trainer, how he looked in Vegas, I could see him.
It could happen.
I could see him sneaking it.
Either way, it's an intriguing fight. So I'm glad there's something on there. This is Showtime's way of trying to satisfy the hardcore boxing fans right here. Just like, hey, yeah, we know you're probably not going to like the Mayweather-Paul thing. You think it's a joke. But we're giving you these fights. So hopefully these satisfy your thirst for real boxing. So, it is what it is. They're trying to balance it. And like you said, Badou Jack was supposed to be on that card. It's crazy. Badou Jack, every time Mayweather fights, Badou Jack always gets a spot on those cards. They must really love him. They must really, really love him. And which is great. I mean, he seems like a nice guy. I don't think I've ever really seen a problem with him over the years. But he always gets a spot on these fights. He really does. It's crazy. But
yeah, I mean, he fought on the McGregor undercard against Nathan Cleverly.
Yeah. So hey, man, I'm sure it works out for him. It is what it is. But like you said, Pascal popped for like 3 different types of steroids, and I don't know, what a joke. But I think they've said that Badou Jack is still scheduled to fight. I don't know if they found him an opponent, but they said he will fight. So we'll see what they get. News and notes of this week's episode. Going back to Triller Fight Club actually announced this week that they signed HBO's Jim Lampley. So Jim Lampley of HBO Boxing returns to commentary with Triller. That's not news I thought I'd hear today. I wonder, because I know his contract was HBO. I think he was still locked in even when HBO left. I think they still had him locked in, so he was just at home making money. I wonder when it actually ended, because I'm pretty sure that DAZN, especially DAZN, and maybe some other networks approached him and said, "Hey, what is it going to take? You know, can we make you an offer?" And Triller just outbid everybody. And I saw a tweet from Dougie Fisher, one of our recurring guests here on the last round of the editor-in-chief of the Ring magazine. He believes his theory was that Triller gave Jim Lampley creative control of some sort, and that Jim Lampley also has his own like production company and something like that. Pretty much give him a little bit more control over what he's doing for them, a little bit more autonomy, which I could see it. Because he even at, I don't know how old he's in his late 60s, I believe. He's still a commodity. You know, people still wanted him.
Do you think that he suits that new outrageous, brash style that Triller have kind of brought? Because I think who was the commentator before that we spoke about that was a good fit
for Triller?
Yeah, who did the Triller shows? The guy that
Mauro Ranallo? Yeah, I like Mauro Ranallo.
But do you think he's more of a fit though than somebody like Jim Lampley? Because well, I think Ranallo is more of a fit. Well, we're gonna have to wait and see. Because I feel like Jim Lampley isn't the type of guy like, I don't want to call these YouTube fights. He's like, you need to put on some real boxing fights for me. And I feel he told Triller that, and Triller was like, okay, we'll do that for you. So. But Mauro Ranallo, if you want somebody with an entertainment factor to add to the broadcast, it's Ranallo who you want to go after, because he knows all these social media puns, and he adds entertainment into his commentary. He's also announced for WWE for quite a few years. He's obviously done Showtime Boxing, Bellator. And in terms of like an entertainment for the audience that Triller has, realistically attracted since they started, Mauro Ranallo would be better suited. But let's see how Jim Lampley does. But like I told you, going back to what I just said, I feel like Lampley told him, I want to call real fights. Like, I don't let me call these YouTube fights. I feel like he said that. If they're going to switch from, the YouTube fights and to more, more boxing, actual boxing, then I think it'll be a good fit. But to see someone like Jim Lampley and like sitting next to Snoop Dogg, just coming out with these outlandish things, it's going to be a very odd mix.
Right. Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe obviously there's going to be some people who weren't going to plan on buying Lopez Kambosos, but with them announcing that Jim Lampley is going to be on the call, I think that's intriguing for a lot of, especially the hardcore boxing fans. Like, you know what? Like, I kind of want to, for like a nostalgia. It's been a couple years since HBO left and he's been on the call. Some people might just order it just to hear Jim Lampley. That's it.
It's going to be interesting. You just touched on, obviously, we've got the Floyd Mayweather fight this weekend, which I think is $50. And then the Triller in 2-3 weeks, which is also $50. And obviously, Floyd pretty much made Teofimo Lopez move to another weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting if we do see any numbers from both cards to see who comes out ahead.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you'll see a card from, I think Mayweather-Paul is obviously the big one. I think they're going to smoke Lopez Kambosos, because I think everybody thought, like you said, they were trying to get Tyson Holyfield on that card with Lopez and Kambosos, and it didn't work out. Tyson had his issues with Triller, and Roy Jones had already said that they didn't pay well or whatever it was. Nobody knows who Lopez is. Nobody knows who Kambosos is. Adding Jim Lampley is going to get you a little bit more buys with the hardcore boxing base, but that's it. That card is not going to do well, because Triller was banking on the fact that they can get Tyson back on there, because Tyson is the one who's going to sell. And they couldn't. So I think it was too late for them to get anything to anybody to like that marquee matchup or that marquee star. So they're just like, okay, well, we're just going to have to move forward and figure it out. You know,
it needs to do well. The $6 million out the pocket.
Oh yeah,
just for the main event, not including the undercard, not including all the planning of the event, the stars that they pay to come and sing.
I don't see how they're going to make money on that at all. Even in these past fights, these past events, I don't know how they make money because they have these big legitimate superstars in entertainment, and I'm just like, how do you have what? How are you guys making money? Yeah, how are you guys making this money? Who knows? Maybe it's just somebody whoever's funding Triller, maybe it's just they have an open checkbook, blank check, and they're just like, I can afford to lose this money. It's like play money, like Monopoly. Like, hey, yeah, I want to put this on. Yeah, it's my entertainment. You never know. And I think we touched on earlier today, Jake Paul, has signed a multi-fight deal with Showtime. Showtime steals Jake Paul from Triller, which I thought that was kind of surprising. I thought Triller was going to be the consistent one with these YouTube fights, but now Showtime is stepping into this game to try to take over this market. Going back to it, I mean, these Paul brothers, they're showing that they can pull in ratings because they're pulling in their audience. So that's what it is. Like, these networks don't care like who buys or who watches, because they only count the numbers. Like, okay, we had 10 million views or 1.5 million buys or something like that.
I think the last one was at 1.5, 1.6, right?
Right. So, they're bringing this new audience, these millennials, I don't even think these are millennials. These are kids. These are younger kids. So, it is what it is, man. But these Paul brothers, I'm sure, are pissing off a lot of boxing people. I don't know.
Like you said, I don't think we're going to see the end of it for some time. Jake Paul's obviously scheduled to fight August 28th on Showtime pay-per-view against former UFC world champion Tyrone Woodley, who does have a pretty good stand-up game in MMA, which is obviously unfortunately a different style of fighting. So this will be probably his hardest fight, though. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And
Woodley's like 39 or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see how it goes.
He's older, but is he going to put a stop to it all? Is he going to, knock him out, good style, and turn Jake Paul into a meme?
Maybe that's what people want, but who knows? Well, I guess we'll see. But we're gonna have to get used to these YouTube fights because this is what's happening. But rounding off as we cross the finish line here at the last round, we'd like to mention again that we have shirts. We have shirts and sweaters available on Fit Warrior brand. The link is actually available on my Twitter account at DannyZ_boxing. So check it out there. We have some shirts for sale and some sweaters for sale on Fit Warrior brand, as I mentioned. And as we sign off here, Mike, go ahead. Once again, let them know where they can find us on the social channels.
Well, at the Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter, and be sure to join us next week. We'll be previewing the Shakur Stevenson, Jose Pedraza, and Lewis Ritson fights.
Yep, exactly. So for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is the Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round